Hi, this is Narasimurthy here. In this video, we'll check equivalence partitioning and boundary value analysis test case design techniques. So basically, these both of these are test case design techniques. We can apply these techniques while deriving scenarios or while writing test cases. So why should we have to apply these techniques? Because if we take equivalence partitioning, so this technique helps us to avoid over testing. So in some of the few cases, we might be thinking that, or we might be testing with different test data, but in the backend, it might be executing the same set of scenario. So in that case, it makes as a duplicate scenario. So by applying this equivalence partitioning, so we can avoid such type of scenarios. And in case of boundary value analysis, so by applying this test case design technique, so we should be able to identify the bugs at boundary points. So in the case of like a range of values, it will be having entry like a start point and end point. So at the start and end point, so we might catch more bugs. So all this about while applying this technique. So we'll come to know that in shortly. So how these are actually useful on this one. So before we go for applying this technique, so it is quite important to understand that when to apply this technique. Okay, so are in my requirement. So how do I come to know that I can apply these techniques? So we should understand that first, because with the given example, whatever I'm going to explain here, some example, you should be able to apply only for that one at the end of this video. Otherwise, if you don't understand when to apply this one, so you will not come to know when a requirement or in your project or in your story scenarios are given. So you will not able to like relate or recognize whether I can apply this technique or not. So for that, so answer is so if in your requirement, if you cross through anything like range of values, and for that range of values, a certain conditions or validations are written. In such cases, we can apply this technique. So both of these techniques, we should be able to apply it. And next question could be like, what do you mean by range of values? So range of values could be, let us assume, we'll take one example. Let's assume that in your application, there is an amount field is there, and requirement is it should accept the number starting from 1 to 100. Okay, so if user tries to enter beyond this range, maybe like 101 or 102, so inside this amount field, then it has to throw some error message. Or maybe if user tries to enter below this range, like -1 or 0 inside this amount field, then the system or application should throw some error message. Okay, let's assume that this is a requirement. Okay, so in this, you can see that a range of values is given like 1 to 100. Okay, so if you see something like this, then you can apply these both of these test case design techniques, equivalence partitioning and boundary value analysis. Okay, and we'll see few more example on range of values. So we'll take second example. So we're all aware of like income tax slabs. We'll take this example. So for 0 to 2.5 lakhs for salaried employees which belongs to this range, they have to pay just 0% income tax. And from 2,50,001 to 5 lakh, the salaried employees which who belongs to this group, they have to pay 5% of income tax rate. Right. And similarly, for 5 lakh, 1 to 10 lakh, they have to pay 20%. So here, let's assume this is our requirement. So as you can see here, we are able to clearly see that range of values 0 to 2.5 lakh is one range, and 2,50,001 to 5 lakh is one more range. So if you see in your requirement something like range of values, then we can go ahead and apply these techniques. Okay, and we'll see one more example. So next example is about fixed deposit interest rate in the bank. Okay, so here, so 7 to 14 days. So if the deposited amount is below 2 crore and if he's a general citizen, then 3% of interest has to be paid for that customer. And if the duration period is 15 to 29 days, and if the deposited amount is below 2 crore and if he's a general citizen, then also again 3% interest has to be paid to the customer. And if it is 30 to 45 days and with the same conditions, then interest rate is different. That is 3.5% has to be paid. So as you can see here, so the range of values are given in terms of days. Okay, so it could be in range of values could be in multiple forms, like as we've seen previous example, it is in terms of in terms of money, like 0 to 2.5 lakhs was there, and in this case we are seeing it as a number of days. In terms of days, the range of values we are seeing, and also it could be in terms of in some examples it could be in terms of dates as well, from date to 1/1 2024 to like 12, 12, 20, 24, something like that. It could be anything. So just we have to observe in our requirement whether range of values are there or not. Okay, and so that we can apply this technique. And you can also see in real time that this could be a bit complicated as well. If you can see for 7 to 14 days with the same set of conditions, like deposited amount should be below 2 crore, and if he is a senior citizen, then 3.5% has to be paid. So it's not going to be the 3%. Okay, and again with the same duration, 7 to 14 days, if the deposited amount is above 2 crore and below 5 crore, then if he's a general citizen, then the interest rate is going to be a bit different, that is 4.75%. Okay, so overall, just requirement, just the we have to catch is that uh, we should identify the range of values. If it is present, then we can apply these both of these technique actually. So next we'll see how to apply this technique. We'll first check on equivalence partitioning this technique. Okay, for this, we'll take the same example, amount field, and it should accept the numbers starting from 1 to 100. So this is the range, and it should work according to this one. So how do we apply this technique on this equivalence partitioning is that, so according to this technique, it says that choose a value from any one value from this range between 1 to 100. Okay, so between 1 to 100 is starting from 2 to 99. So what do we do with 1 and 100? So for 1 and 100, these are like boundary values. One is lower boundary value and 100 is upper boundary value. We can apply next technique, boundary value analysis technique. For this between these values, like starting from 2 to 99, we can apply this equivalence partitioning technique. Okay, according to this technique, it says that we have to just pick any one value from this number starting from 2 to 99. Let's say I will pick this 60 as the number. So I will enter the 16 into inside this amount field. I will click on OK, and I will test that whether it is working or not. Okay, so if it is working fine for 60, so what does this technique says is that we need not to require test for remaining values in this range. So we have this two, next number is 3, next number is 4, 5, 6, 7, like this till 99. So we need not to test for all those values. So if you test for any one value in this range, if it works fine, then it is going to definitely work for other range of values as well. Okay, maybe we'll see one more example. Let's say 500 to 1000. So instead of 1 to 100, if the given range is 5 to 1000, 500 to 1000, it should accept the values between these numbers. Then pick any one number. Let's say 600. I will pick up 600 number, and I will just enter into amount field. I will click on OK, and I will test it whether it is working or not. So if it is working fine, then I will certify that or according to this technique. So we need not to test any other values like 501, 502, 800, or any values, other values inside this range of values. Okay, so next question could be like, why should we have to apply this technique? So equivalence partitioning. Okay, so let us say we get a requirement something like instead of the smaller range of values, if we get something like bigger range of values, like this amount field has to accept the numbers starting from 1 to 1 crore. Between this entire range, it should accept it. This is your requirement. So in that case, we get a question that should I, as our requirement says that, so it should accept all the values starting from 1 to 1 crore. Right? Should I need to test for all the values? Like I will pick number 1 and I will enter into amount field like 1 and click on OK, and I will test for 1. Next input is 2, so I will enter 2 inside amount field and click on OK, and I will test it. So like that, should I need to do till 1 crore? This is what we get the question actually. But uh, let's say we don't know about this equivalence partitioning, and if we go by this approach, or we'll do a simple calculation here. Let's take I will take 1 second to test one input value. For example, I will take number 1 and I will enter 1 inside this amount field. I will click on OK, and I will check whether it is working or not. For this entire activity, let's assume that I will take 1 second to complete this entire set of activity. Like that, next number is 2. So I will take number 2 and I will enter 2 inside this amount field, and I will click on OK, and I will test that whether it is working or not. So for 2 inputs, I took 2 seconds. Like this, in order to complete till 1 crore, so I might need 1 crore seconds. Okay, so 1 crore seconds is quite a big number, and it approximately comes like something like 115 days. Okay, so if you're going to take that much amount of time to test just a single amount field, so that is going to be big risky, and also in such a big duration, maybe the entire project might get over, or if there is a complex story we are working, including development, testing, and deployment, might have even completed with that such a big duration. Okay, so that's not the ideal case. So So if we apply this equivalence partitioning, right? So what does it say is that, so entire this range starting from like between 1 to 1 crore, you pick any one value and test for it, and you need not to test for other values in this range. Okay, so that means I'm going to pick up, let's say I will pick up this value 1000, okay, and I will enter into 1000 inside someone field and click on OK, and I will just check whether it is working or not. And as per this one, we just need to test only one input. So I have completed this entire certifying this amount field just in 1 second. Okay, instead of 115 days. So that's why the effectiveness or importance of this equivalence partitioning. Okay, and next question could be, as we are trying to test only one input inside this entire range. Okay, is it really works? That's what we could get some questions on this area, because as it's a bigger range, so we might test for like 1000, which comes under this range, but we are not sure that whether it works for when I test for 10 lakh, right, which is under this range of 1 to 1 crore. So I will enter 10 lakh inside this amount field. I will click on OK and I will test it, right? So if it is working for 10 lakh, again we might get a question that if I go to test for 90 lakhs, so which comes under this range, whether it works or not, we don't have idea on that one, right? So we are not much confidence, or we don't have idea on that one. But as per this technique, it says that just apply one value in this range. So is this really works? That might have kind of questions we might get it, but this technique really works, because to understand that part, we might have to think like a developer, because as a developer, so we will not write for different input, different code. For example, number one is there. So for input number one, we will not write a different set of code. And next number is two. For number two, we will not write a different code for number two. So likewise, if it comes to the number three, right, we will not write a different code for number three. So like this, we will not write. So we'll write even a condition. So how it could be is I have just written a simple sample code here. So it may not be exactly the same code, but just for understanding purpose, I have just written something like this. So our range, this amount field has to accept is starting from 1 to 1 crore, right? So as soon as I enter, so this amount value, so amount value has to be greater than or equal to 1. So why greater than or equal to 1? So if it is 1 also, it should accept, and it should be accept greater than 1. Okay. And also one more condition we might have to put, because greater than 1 means it could be 2 crore as well, but our upper boundary is 1 crore. So that's the reason we might have to write with and with amount less than or equal to 1 crore, right? So now less than or equal to 1 crore means it should accept 1 crore as well at the last boundary point as well. Okay, that's why we have written amount value less than or equal to 1 crore. And if we satisfy this condition, so further logic or something we can build or write for the remaining things. Okay, we'll test with this input. So we'll test. So as per our technique, it says that pick any one value between in the range 1 to 1 crore. So let's pick this 1000. So 1000 greater than or equal to 1? Yes, true. And is 1000 less than or equal to 1 crore? Yes, true. So this condition will execute. So we were talking about to test with a different test input or test data to make sure whether it is working or not, right? Let's take some other inputs. Let's say I will take 10 lakhs, which comes under this range 1 to 1 crore, right? So again, so this set of code is going to be executed. So 10 lakh is greater than or equal to 1. Yes, it is true. And is 10 lakh less than or equal to 1 crore? Yes, it is true. And same set of code will be executed. Again, you take any one number, like let's say 300, so which comes under this range only. So is 300 is greater than or equal to 1? Yes, true. And is 300 less than or equal to 1 crore? Yes, it is true. And some set of logic will be same logic will be executed. As you can see, you might be providing different test data, test input, but the same set of code is being executed. Same scenario is being executed here. So as you test as a different test data, different test input, right? It is being executed same scenario. So you might be thinking with a different test data, okay, but it is a duplicate scenario here. So we are just wasting a time here. So we have already tested this entire this code on this scenario, right? So if you again go and test for different set of values, then we are just wasting a time on this area. So that's why this technique really works, this equivalence partitioning. So overall is when a range of values given, just pick any one value and test for it, and it is going to work for all other remaining range of values, and we need not to test. So that's all about this equivalence partitioning. So we'll check boundary value analysis, how to apply this test case design technique. Okay, so step one. So let's take the same example, amount field with 1 to 100. This example. Okay, so First, step number one is we should identify the range. Okay, so given range is 1 to 100. So 1 is called starting point and 100 is called like end point or end value. So in technical terms, we call this 1 is lower boundary value and 100 is upper boundary value. So write down in the table like lower boundary value and upper boundary value like this. So 1 and 100. Okay, so in this boundary value analysis, so what we have to do is that we have to, for this boundary values, we have to add by 1 and subtract by 1. So this is the rule and that's it. Okay, so we have recognized this lower boundary value 1. For this lower boundary value 1, we have to subtract by 1. So 1 minus 1 is 0. Okay, so I will just write here 0. And next step is for this boundary value 1, we have to add by 1, that is 1 plus 1 is 2. So we'll write 2. Okay, the same rule will apply for upper boundary value, that is 100. For this boundary value 100, we have to subtract by number 1, that is 100 minus 1 is 99. Okay, and next step is we have to add by 1 to this boundary value 100, that is 100 plus 1 is 101. Okay, so that's it. So for a given range, so just write down this lower boundary and upper boundary, like this 1 and 100. And for each of this boundary value, you have to subtract by 1 and add by 1. So then you get some different numbers like the 0 and 2 and 99 and 101. Okay, so we have got 6 different inputs from by applying this boundary value analysis technique. So we'll just analyze what are these inputs. Okay, so as you can see here, 0 and 101, it gave us 0 and 101. So you can observe that our given range is only 1 to 100. So this boundary value analysis giving us some test data input or scenario that what if whether our application is capable to handle when user tries to enter out of this range value, that is maybe 0. So if a user enters 0 inside this amount field, basically it has to throw some error message by saying that it should be within the range of 1 to 100. Okay, but and also with 101 as well, it should has to throw some error message. Okay, whether it is our application is handling or not. So we just have to just check that one. We could see the next range, next values like 1 and 100. So we are trying to test at exactly with the boundary values as well. By testing inside is like in the amount field will enter 1 and test whether it is working or not. Similarly for 100 as well. So the question is why should we have to test for 1 and 100 as well? So sometimes what could go wrong is that, so developer, as you can see here, right? So I will just make and modify this condition as we are testing for 1 to 100 this range of values, right? So sometimes to work this entire this amount field, if the developer writes the condition something like this is, let's assume that this is an ideal code or condition the developer has to write. So in some cases, due to the urgency or in case conditions are written wrongly, something maybe let's say I have to write something like amount greater than or equal to 1. So I will just write something like amount greater than 1. And here as well, in the case of here, I ideally have to write amount less than or equal to 100. Instead of that, I will just write as amount less than 100. Okay, so in this case, this could happen due to the urgency or maybe condition sometimes written wrongly. So in this case, if we try to test for exactly with the boundary values like lower boundary 1, so I will enter in the inside amount field 1 and click on OK. At this point of time, it may not work because we are trying to say the value should be greater than 1. So it start working only after 1, that is 2, 3, 4, 5. This entire logic will work. And as well as you could also see that this amount with less than or equal to 100. So that means, so if I'm going to test for 100, then it is going to fail. Actually, it doesn't consider 100 because we are trying to put the condition that amount has to be less than 100. Okay, so that's why we are trying to test with boundary values like 1 and 100. And next one more important step is that, so we have got these inputs like 2 and 99 here. So when we apply both equivalence partitioning and boundary value analysis, right? So there might be chances that we might encounter duplicate kind of scenario with different test data. Right, as you could see here, the given range is 60, but we are applying this one with 2 and 99. So right, so it should has to work with the range 60. So we have already taken into consider this 60. We have tested it, and we need not to test for 2 or 99 here. Okay, that indirectly makes a duplicate scenario. As per the equivalence partitioning, in the entire range, we have to just like test for any one value. We need not to test for all other values in this range. Either we can test for any one value, either 60 or 2 or 99. It is not required to test for any of like all the values. So testing one input value should be sufficient and okay. Okay, and there could be one more possibility that so when we apply different range of values, for example, which are back to back, the next range which starts immediately with the next number, like first number is 0 to 2.5 lakh. So in this case, and next range is it starts immediately, that is 2,50,000 1 to 5 lakh, right? And next range it immediately starts with the next number 5 lakh 1 to 10 lakh. So in this case, so when we apply this boundary value analysis, right? So let's say I will apply for 2,50,000, whatever is there, I will take this boundary value, upper boundary value. So as per boundary value analysis, we have to add and subtract by 1. So when I add by 1, so it lies to the next range, like 2,50,001. So probably by applying that one, we might have tested in the previous range itself. So just we have to be recheck that one. If we are trying to make a duplicate kind of entries, then we just have to, we need not to test, and just we have to pick only unique kind of data by looking at this equivalence partitioning technique. Okay, so that's all for this equivalence partitioning and boundary value analysis. And thanks for watching this video. Bye for now.